my slides? Okay.
I would like to everybody, please mute yourself since we are starting. I would like to ask everybody, please, with the highest integrity and show Scott how amazing people in Dallas chapters are. And I see a lot of my Lindsay family here. Please making sure you mute yourself. Thank you so much. Let me re-welcome again, Scott Ambler.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yep. Okay, we'll get going. Okay, so what I'd like to talk about today is how do we go beyond failing fast? One of the, for those of you who are working with Agile coaches or Agile consultants, one of their favorite things to say is we want to fail fast. And that's certainly better than failing slowly, but I think we can do better than that. So I'm going to work through that. Yeah, so if everybody could go on mute, that would be great. So this presentation was originally given as a keynote speech at the Agile Israel conference at the beginning of the year. So you're getting a keynote level talk tonight. So I'm Scott Ambler. I'm the VP and Chief Scientist of Disciplined Agile at PMI. Along with Mark Lyons, I'm the co-creator of the Toolkit. And Disciplined Agile, as you all know, was purchased in August of 2019 by PMI. So we've been in the process of integrating DA into PMI and bringing new things to market. So I blog in a few places and available on LinkedIn, all that good sort of stuff. So what do I want to work through today? I'm going to start with a few observations. Some of them might be a bit uncomfortable, but I'm going to do that anyways. So, and then I'm going to talk about what guided continuous improvement is all about. What does it mean to choose your wow? And then I'm going to show you how to break out of methods prison. This is a concept that's been popularized by Ivar Jakobsen, and he's done some very good work around this. So I'm going to fill in some of the details. And then, of course, I'll go to Q&A. I should also mention that we're going to make these slides available to you. I'll get a PDF to May after this. I will also we'll do Q&A towards the end. And if it so happens that we run out of time, I'm happy to answer the questions via email as well in a few days. So don't worry. So let's start with some observations. So, as I said, Ivar Jakobsen, who you may know as being the father of use cases and the father of the unified process, one of the three amigos behind the unified modeling language back in the day. Very, very bright gentleman. Now is about 10, 15 years ago, he started the CMAT organization along with the Object Management Group to help to bring some great ideas to software engineering, co-author of many books. And about 2 years ago, he coined the term methods prison or framework prison. And the basic idea is the observation that these frameworks that we adopt, which are all good. I'll share some industry stats with you in a bit that, they all, when you do them right, they work out well. Even though they're helpful, there's limits because, the framework solves a certain problem. And then once you solve that once you've solved that problem, you're basically now doing that. So, you used to be a waterfall shop and then you adopt Scrum. Now you're Scrum shop and things are probably better. But now you're stuck at the Scrum level, or you're safe shop or less shop or, whatever it is that you've adopted. So fair enough, right? So the frameworks help, but then, you hit the limit of the framework and there's nowhere else to go except, you got to do something else now. So that can be a bit of a challenge. So, and this is what this slide gets at. So let's assume that you're in the process of adopting a framework or you have adopted a framework, and let's assume that it goes well for you. So everything's all fine. So when you first adopt a framework, there's an initial learning curve. So your effectiveness goes down. You got to do training, you got to get coaching, you got to figure out, how you do this stuff. So, for a while, for a short period, effectiveness goes down. But eventually things start to get better and, things improve. So, and what happens is, and once again, assuming that things go well, that you successfully adopt this framework or adopt this method, and you solve whatever problem it solves. So Scrum solves certain problems, and okay, so you adopt it well and you solve those problems. Safe solves other types of problems, so you solve those problems. So let's assume it all went well for you. But then what happens once you've solved the problem, the framework really has very little else to do. There's nothing more than you can do with it because you've adopted it and things are going well. You've solved your problem. Challenges though that now you've peaked again, right? So you hit the limits of your framework. And this is called the S curve. This is a classic challenge in the process community. This is not shouldn't be news to anybody. So the question is, how high up, how much more effective are things? How much better are you doing now? Because that's something that people usually want to know. And if you listen to if you listen to all the methodologists and the people behind the frameworks, you'll hear all these wild stories about, we adopted it here and we're 10 times more effective. Well, yeah, it's because they were totally messed up before, and doing anything would improve that situation, right? So sure, there's stories where things got 10 times more effective, and I've seen them. I've done them myself. I've seen that. But it really wasn't due to the wonders of the framework. It was due to the fact that they were hosed. So you solve some basic problems and suddenly you get double or triple productivity almost instantly. So, and then other people will promise you can do twice the amount of work and half the amount of time and all these wonderful promises. But are they true? So you got to sort of question the marketing coming from the people with the frameworks. So I'm a bit of a quant. I used to do research and I probably will again. And I've sort of taken a research break, doing all my integration issues right now. But I'm a firm believer in research and numbers and making fact-based decisions where I can. So if you go looking around for a source that doesn't have an axe to grind, you can actually find them. And one of them is a gentleman by the name of Dr. Don Reifer. And he actually, a few years ago now, probably 10 or 15, I guess, he earned his PhD in Agile. And he explored the question, how effective is Agile in practice? Which is an interesting question to ask. And he's basically turned his PhD into a business, and now he continues his research, and he sells the results, and he consults and helps organizations to understand this Agile and Lean stuff. But the thing I like about him is he doesn't have an axe to grind. So he's not a safe guy, not a less guy, not a Disciplined Agile guy, just a guy. And his research shares his numbers. So, and he happens to have a lot of data, which is another thing that I like, right? These studies where they have like five cases, not that, okay, whatever. Nice anecdotal evidence. So anyways, he has statistically solid data. And what he's found is that on average, and so remember that these numbers are averages, so some organizations will do worse and some organizations will do better. But on average, he's seeing about a 7 to 12% productivity improvement by adopting these smaller methods, like Scrum or Kanban or Agile modeling or whatever. And with the scaling frameworks like Less and Safe and others, a 3 to 5% productivity increase. And that's okay. It's positive, so that's good, but it's certainly not these 10 times productivity promises that we keep hearing, right? So on average, things are positive, but it's not ridiculously positive. So this is the situation we're in. So yes, adopting these frameworks is a good idea, but wouldn't you like to do better? So let's think, I'll just throw that idea out there for now. So one of the challenges that we have is that context counts. So if you look at this chart, this is a classic spider chart or a web chart, depending on, or a radar chart, should say, depending on whose terminology you want to use. But the point is that when I look at scaling, or look at tactical scaling, I should say, how do you scale Agile or Lean or you're across a team? I look at 6 factors. How big is the team? Like, that's the obvious scaling thing. How big is the team, right? The bigger the team, more scale you are, right? So that's obvious. But how geographically distributed you are? So I'm sure right now, a few of you are probably working in remote locations, right? Some sort of plague has swept through. And, I'm joking. But anyways, the idea is that, but even before COVID, it was observably true that some agile teams were working in a geographically distributed environment, including globally distributed. We've seen teams that are working in what we call organizationally distributed mode. So more than one company is involved. Maybe you're doing some outsourcing. We've seen agile teams in regulatory compliance situations. We've seen agile teams take on significant technical complexity as well as insignificant technical complexity. And same thing for your problem domain, your domain complexity. So the point is that all of your teams can be rated against these scales, and different teams will be in different situations. And even if they were all in the same situation, your teams would still be unique because, as we know, people are unique. So people are unique. That means teams are unique. And the reality is that we face unique situations. So when I show this type of a chart to executives, well, every single time I've shown this chart to executives, my only response that I've ever gotten is, "Oh, we've got all of this," and they go like that. It's true. Yeah, you do. Any decent-sized organization is going to have a wide range of teams. Different teams in different situations need to work in different ways. One process size does not fit all. So, and interesting enough, in Agile, we're always talking about the simple situation, which is wonderful, but nobody's in that situation anymore. We're all, everybody with COVID is working remotely now. So nobody is in the ideal Agile spot anymore, and that's okay. It is what it is. So the point is that different teams are in different situations. So one process size will not fit all. So we need to be aware of that. So different teams will work in different ways. Not only that, but because their situation changes, they will also change the way that they work. So the way that my team works today is different than the way my team used to work 3 months from now. And it will be different again in a couple months because our situation will have evolved, we'll have learned, many things will have changed, and we will have responded appropriately, I hope, to that change. So that's okay. Another challenge that we see is that agile transformation in general is really hard. So one of the things we need to do, at least I would invite you to do, is to start thinking outside of the framework box. So we'll see what that looks like in a few minutes. So if the frameworks really aren't, they're helping, but they're not fulfilling these amazing promises that we keep hearing, what do you do? So I'm a firm believer in looking at the competition and looking around and observing and asking myself, which companies or which competitors are out there that I would be really afraid of? Which competitors, if they were to enter my market space, would really give me heartburn? I mean, who do I have to be afraid of? And the answer is usually, and I do this exercise with executives as well. And we do a competitive analysis, and and we organize them into, we identify all the competitors, do the post-it note thing, and then then I ask them. So look, I want you to put these into two categories. I want you to categorize competitors either as competitors that you're not really that concerned about, just business as usual. Yeah, we compete against those guys, not a big deal. And then the competitors that keep you up at night. So the post-it notes move around the wall. And then I ask, so of these two groups, which is the one that's most likely to adopt a framework? And of course, there's a lot of chuckles, and they all point to the people they're not worried about. Then I said, so what do you think the apex predators are doing? And invariably, the types of companies that are on the apex predator list, the ones that we're really afraid of, is like Amazon and Google and eBay and these if you're in the financial industry, you're worried about the fintechs. If you're in other industries, you're worried about these other new startup companies that are coming to market with new technologies and new ways of working. And so I then asked the question, so how do you think the Amazons of the world got so scary? Because there's nothing special about Amazon. There really isn't. They just chose to be competitive, and they got better at being competitive than their competitors, most of whom are no longer in business because they were unfortunately competing against Amazon. So how do they do it? That's a fair question. And luckily, the Amazons of the world aren't aren't shy, and they're willing to tell us how they do it, and they do it through a fairly old technique called Kaizen, and through continuous improvement. So when a team at Amazon or eBay or all these scary companies run into an issue, and they do constantly, they do, hey, somehow we've noticed that we've got a problem or we need to improve something. They then, go through an exercise of, well, how could we possibly address this problem? How could we, what could we experiment with? What new way of working could we adopt to address whatever challenge we've got? If we could go on mute, that'd be great. Thank you. So we try out, so then what we do is we identify potential solutions. We also identify how we're going to measure, how are we going to know if we're successful or not, because we follow a technique called validated learning. We want to learn this. So then we try out these new techniques, these new solutions, and then we assess the effectiveness. So we measure, how, we give it a fair shake. We measure how well it worked. If it worked well, we adopt it. Didn't work out so well. Okay, it doesn't work for us right now. So we abandon it or abandon the portions of that technique that didn't work. And then if we're really polite, we share our learnings with others, and then we rinse and repeat. We keep going through this. This is a technique called Plan, Do, Study, Act. So this has been around for decades. And this is the way that these really scary apex predators got good. Is it was one small step at a time. You make a little change, hopefully it works, you get better, one more change, one more step, one more step, one more step, one more step. And now they're so far ahead of most of us, it's going to be very difficult to catch up. What's interesting about these companies is none of them are sitting on their laurels. They're in learning mode. They know that if they stop improving, that somebody will eventually catch up to them and outcompete them and kill them off. So they're really smart about this. So they're constantly learning. They're constantly doing continuous improvement. So this is what the successful organizations are doing. My suggestion to you is that you've got to at least do this, but I'm going to show you how to do it better. So the companies that are doing this enjoy an improvement curve that looks like this, because they're constantly improving over time. And there's all these books and case studies that you can read about this now, where because they've been doing this for 15 or 20 years, they're doing all these amazing things that some of us can barely imagine. Yet it's just, business as usual for them now. So the challenge with this technique is that sometimes there's failure. So this line that we see here isn't I'm showing it as this perfect curve, but it really isn't. It's a jaggedy curve, because sometimes you experiment with something that works, so your improvement goes up, your effectiveness goes up. Sometimes you experiment with something and your effectiveness goes down, so then you abandon it and you go back up again. So it's this jagged thing over time. So sometimes you succeed, sometimes you fail. The challenge is that failing is expensive, and particularly failing slowly. So if it takes you months, weeks or months to come up with an idea and plan it out and try it out and see what happens, and hold another meeting, or some committee gets together to decide whether or not this is a good idea. This is a phenomenally slow way, a slow and expensive way of working. So in the Agile community, we've been talking for years now about, well, failing fast is much better. If you're going to fail, it would be better to get it over with and do it fast, do it cheaply, and move on. So let's learn fast. Let's learn cheaply. And this is actually a risk reduction technique. So for those of you into risk management, this is actually a very good idea. Let's try something small, see if it works. If it does, great. If it doesn't, abandon it. But can we do better? Yes, and we can actually do a lot better than this. So the way we do better is, first we have a little bit of humility, and we start realizing that maybe we aren't on the leading edge like Amazon. Maybe we're a bit behind. So Thomas Edison's famous for, he said he hasn't failed. He's just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Well, can you imagine now? And this all, his experiments for the most part came out of his own pocket. But can you imagine being the executive that has to pay for all these failures? Can you imagine? And how the heck do you justify that? So the last thing I want, in most organizations, they're not going to tolerate somebody failing 10,000 times. So we got a little bit better than that. So the observation that we want to make is, Newton had a very good observation that, he actually he didn't come up with all his, all these wonderful things that he did on his own. He actually built on the work of others. He observed and he learned and he realized, you know what, others have solved these problems. And then he went on from there. So most of us are luckily in a position that we can stand on the shoulders of giants. Other people have been here before. So even though you're in a unique situation, you right now, your team, you as an individual, your team, your organization, you're facing problems that have been faced before by others, or very similar problems have been faced before and overcome hundreds, maybe even thousands of times before. Chances are pretty good there's strategies and techniques out there that can help you, that you could adopt and solve your problem. So in DA, we talk about, isn't it better to succeed early? Isn't it better, succeeding early seems to be a lot better than failing fast. So if we can, let's try to reduce the number of failures. So that's what guided continuous improvement is all about. So let's revisit this chart. So, we saw earlier that this is the Kaizen, the total quality management strategy actually for doing improvement over time. Let's improve in small steps. So the challenge is right here. These techniques, when we try, sometimes we try a technique, it works, great, woohoo. Sometimes it doesn't work so well, it fails, and we've learned, right? And the consultants will tell us, well, we really haven't failed, we've learned something. So that's really a success. Come on, that's a euphemism. You failed. You failed. Let's just call it as it is. You failed, cost you money. You chose wrong, it cost you money. Okay, it cost you time too. So maybe we can do better. So the observation is that if we get better at identifying these potential techniques to experiment with, if we get better at matching the environment that we're in with the potential solutions to address the problem, then we fail less often. We're still going to fail. You're human, you're going to make mistakes, but we can decrease the number of failures. And that means we improve faster. It's even better than failing, succeeding early, better than failing fast. So how do you do this? Well, if you have an experienced Agile coach who's familiar with the type of situation that you're in and has seen it before, then they're going to be able to guide you through it. This is why you get coaches. Coaches are a very good thing. If you can attract them, if you can find them, if you can afford them, they're a very good thing. The challenge is, though, maybe you're not in that situation, or maybe you're in situations that some of your coaches haven't tried yet. So, for example, I bet you many of you work in companies where in January, I bet you had Agile coaches who were, purists, shall we say, who were running around telling you that the only way to be Agile is you've got to be co-located in a team, in a single room, or you at least got to be on the same floor. Everybody's got to be together, or you're not Agile and you're evil if you're not doing that. Now suddenly, wow, nobody's in that situation. Nobody is in that situation right now. And they've all had to many of them had to scramble and figure out how to do remote Agile, which was, interesting to me because I've been doing remote Agile for many, many years, because I chose to observe that some teams were actually doing this and doing it well. And we captured those techniques in DA. So what would happen, so had they been a little more experienced, or had they had a toolkit like DA, then they wouldn't have had to scramble as much, and your teams wouldn't have had to scramble as much figuring out how the heck do we do this remote work. And you might still be scrambling. Many organizations are still sort of not quite that comfortable with having people working from home, and people getting burned out, and there's a few challenges there. So this is the point. So if we have access to previous learnings, either through experienced people or through having some sort of process knowledge base like the DA toolkit, we can make better decisions, and therefore we improve faster and cheaper. So where traditional continuous improvement, which is a very good thing, enjoys an improvement curve that looks like this, in DA we enjoy an improvement curve like this. Simply, and it's just simple math. We just have making better decisions, so we have fewer failures, and therefore we improve faster. It's basically it. So how do you do that? So let's work through an example. So one thing that teams do, and this is not I'll get a little software here. This is not specific to software teams. We see this with teams building houses, for example. You got to explore scope. You got to figure out what the heck do your customers want, right? So what are we building here? Is it software? Are we building a house? Building a bridge? Whatever. So what types of issues? So when we're exploring scope, so we're at the beginning of a project or even partway through a project, if we're exploring scope, what types of questions do we have to answer? What intents do we have to solve? Well, how are people going to use our solutions? So how are people going to use this house? How are people going to use this software that we're building? What information should we collect about this thing that we're going to build or buy or tailor, as the case may be? What processes does it support? How are we going to interact with it? And other aspects. So there's a bunch of questions, a bunch of intents that we need to fulfill when we're exploring scope, and we will do this at least implicitly. My advice would be do it explicitly. Make decisions knowing, make these decisions in explicitly, and make make the best decision you can in the situation that you face. So think through these issues and adopt the best techniques that are available to you. So let's dive down a little bit more. So when we say we're exploring usage, how are people going to use this solution? How are they going to use this house? How are they going to live in this house? Better way to word that. How are they going to use this piece of software that we're going to build? Well, maybe we write epics. I'm sure any of you doing Agile, you probably know epics are big user stories. Maybe we're going to take an outcome-based approach. What are we trying to achieve, as opposed to getting more designy and figuring out how we're actually going to do it. Personas, user stories, and many other techniques. So there's a wide range of techniques available to you. So in DA, we've identified hundreds of techniques. Now, we're not saying we've identified all of them, of course, as it's constantly growing, but we've identified enough to let you know you got choices. So let's keep that in mind in a few minutes. Sometimes when we are addressing a question, we're addressing one of these process intents. Some of the techniques are actually better than others. So, for example, when we're exploring the level of detail, when we're capturing the level of detail, say we got to write a spec. Usually, the best way to do that is to write an overview. Sometimes a light specification, sometimes a detailed specification, and sometimes people don't write any documentation at all, and good luck. And sometimes that's an appropriate technique, actually, so I shouldn't really be making fun of it. But the point is that in this case, when this is what we call an ordered list, and what we're trying to communicate with this arrow is that the strategies towards the top of the list are generally more effective than the strategies towards the bottom of the list. Now, that depends on your situation, depends on your skills and stuff like that. But in general, stuff towards the top better than the stuff towards the bottom. So it's sort of like a mini maturity model in that way. So here's an example of something we call a goal diagram. So one of the huge challenges in the process world and in the ways of working are there hundreds, if not thousands, of techniques out there. I assume you're all familiar with the PMBOK guide. There's a couple techniques in that book, and that's just for project management, let alone architecture and business analysis and testing and building things and governing and many other aspects of whatever it is that you do in your companies. It's a complex world. So, and there's lots of, like, hundreds, if not thousands, of techniques. So how do you find them? Particularly if you don't really know much about that thing, you might not even know the language. So it's not as simple as I wish it was as simple as just Googling it. But if you don't even know the language, you don't know what to search for, how would you know? And then how would you know what the trade-offs are? So, for example, I'm sure many of you, at least the people in the software world, you probably know a fair number of those techniques, but I bet you don't know all of them, and I bet you don't know the trade-offs involved, right? So, how the heck do you choose in your situation? So, there's a little bit of skill there. There's a little bit of knowledge that you need, and how the heck are you going to have that knowledge when there's thousands of practices available to you that might apply to whatever it is that you face? So, how do we do that? I'm not going to ask a question if I can't give you an answer, right? Okay, so teams tailor their own process. So this is a concept that's at the heart of Agile. It's one of the original concepts, I believe, coming out of extreme programming, that a team should own their process. They should be able to choose their wow, choose their way of working. And the reason why we want to do this is, well, they're unique, and we really want them to be as effective as possible. If you're the person paying the bill for this team, don't you want them to work well? Don't you want them to be effective? Don't and get better over time and learn over time? So they're going to choose their wow, and I hope you're going to allow them to choose their wow and enable them and support them in that. And there's different techniques. We can have initial tailoring sessions at the beginning of a project or at the beginning of a team, the formation of a team. We can hold retrospectives throughout their effort. One of the ideas built into Scrum is that at the end of every sprint or every iteration, we have a short retrospective meeting where we reflect on what's going on and what can we improve. We should try out experiments. Yeah, just talking about experimentation earlier. There's a bunch of different techniques. So let's do an example. So we're in a situation, and we're a software development team, been going for a while, and we've released our app into the marketplace. It hasn't seen a lot of adoption from millennials, and that's an important part of our target market base, because we really do want to serve the younger crowd, because they become older, they spend more money, all that good sort of stuff. So we're not, for whatever reason, this app just not attractive to millennials. We don't know why. So we know we've got this problem, so we start thinking about it. Hey, what the heck's going on here? So we clearly don't know. We clearly don't understand what these millennials want. We don't have any existing customers that are millennials, so we don't have anybody to talk to really. Our product owner really has nobody to work with, and even though we've done focus groups and that, didn't work out for whatever reason. We've never really run into this problem before, including our coach. We've got this great Scrum coach, and they've never stumbled into this problem before. They don't know what to do. So we know, but luckily, one of us has gotten training in the DA toolkit, and we know, hey, this sounds like a scoping problem. How about that? So, oh, look, there's a process goal called Explore Scope. Let's go see what it's all about. And luckily, we saw that a few slides ago. So anyways, so here we are, at the Explore Scope diagram, and we don't have these memorized. I don't have these memorized. I was involved in the creation. I don't have them memorized. Why would I? It's all written down. But anyways, so we go to the diagram. And so the real skill is, how the heck do we not navigate things, right? So we go to the diagram. We say, oh yeah, looks like we have a issue on the way we're exploring usage. We don't know how these millennials are going to use our product. What do we do? And we look at this list. Wow, there are more things on that list than what we were told about in our certification, in our framework certification class. We were told about epics and user stories. And then we had some really advanced training and learned about user story maps. And that was okay. Those are great techniques. That they're not getting the job done. So we look at this list, going, a few interesting ideas there. Maybe I don't know anything about them. Okay, so let's go look them up. So we dig deeper. In this case, we look in the book, or we look online in the, if you happen to be a DA member, you've got access to the DA tool, so you can browse this. So we open up the book in this case, and we're like, hey, you know what? Here's some descriptions. So we get an idea of what these techniques are all about. In many cases, we get references to books or articles online that you can go and read if you want to get more details about what user stories are all about, or whatever these techniques are all about. And most importantly, we have an understanding what the trade-offs are. So we understand what the technique is, just enough information to give us a good idea of what it's all about, and pointers to where to go get more details. And we understand what the trade-offs are. And the reason why the trade-offs are important, and they're rarely discussed, by the way, in the descriptions of many, when you go and read the details about these techniques, the people behind the techniques always have positive things to say, and they never go into the negative things for some reason, because they get presented as best practices. There's no such thing as a best practice. Never has been, never will be. I've been looking for 30 years, have never found one. Have found thousands presented as best practices, but have never actually seen one. Because all practices are contextual in nature. They have advantages, they have disadvantages. They work well in some situations, and they're a spectacularly bad idea in others. So, and the skill here is to, once again, to identify a technique that's more than likely going to work in the situation that you face. So that way it has a greater chance of succeeding when you experiment with it. So we look at all these things, yeah, it looks like personas. So in a couple of minutes of reading, perhaps, depending on how fast you can read, because, hey, you know what, personas, that sounds like a pretty good idea. It sounds like it's going to work. We should try it out. So just because it's this concept of a persona has worked for many other teams before, doesn't mean it's going to work for you. You might not have the skills. You just might not be able to, but you just might not be able to figure it out. Or it just might not be the technique that gets the job done in this case. In this case, it probably is. But still, you might not be able to pull it off for whatever reason. So you've got a better chance of making this work. Okay, so that's the idea here. Of course, there's many ways that we can evolve our WOW. We eat our own cooking in DA. So so we don't tell you the one official way of choosing your WOW. We give you lots of techniques that may or may not work in your situation. So once again, you would need to do a little bit of reading or do a little bit of training and to learn about these techniques, and then choose accordingly for your situation. So this is how you break out of method prison. So you start where you are. You always, I hope as professionals, you're always trying to do the best that you can in the situation that you face. But the next step, the important thing, is always strive to get better. Always be trying to improve. And this is what the apex predators are doing. They're always trying to get better. They're desperate to improve because they're learning organizations and they're competitive. So wherever you started, if you're still doing traditional, or you're doing Scrum, or you're doing Safe, or whatever, great, good for you. Because right now that's the best you can do. But recognize we can get better. So let's start doing guided continuous improvement and get on a better improvement curve, and then do do better than what the apex predators are doing. So maybe in time you could catch up, or at least get reasonably close, and become competitive with them. Because one of the things that, I'm sure many of you have been attending talks or reading articles about the post-COVID environment, or the COVID environment. We're going to be a good year or two into the COVID-19 environment. But anyways, and eventually we'll evolve into the post-COVID environment, and other things will be happening. But because we'll figure out this COVID stuff finally. But the only, and everybody's making guesses of what this is going to be like. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it's going to be like, because I know I'll be wrong. But what I can absolutely guarantee is that in the COVID-19 and post-COVID-19 environments, things are going to be more competitive, because the economy is shrinking. That's pretty darn clear. So the organizations that survive are the ones that become more competitive. So assuming that you're in one of those organizations that survives, you will be competing as the best that you can, and your competitors will also be competing more. So we're going to get into a much more competitive environment, and the only organizations that are going to make it are the ones that have learned, that get better at getting better, and that's what DA is all about. So we need to look beyond simplistic answers. Everyone wants to sell you simple answers, and this is the Scrum lifecycle if you're not familiar with it. And it's great. Scrum is great. Solves certain problems, good for that. But we really need to look at the entire environment, because we know this doesn't work. You're project managers, you know this. There's no possible way. How the heck did you start that project? When are you going to release? When you get something out the door? Apparently, there's no governance. No portfolio management going on. There's a lot of stuff missing here. We got to stop parking your brains at the door. So just like a Scrum-based Agile lifecycle, which is what this is, a little more robust than what appears in the 18-page Scrum guide. So let's be honest about this. In many of your organizations, I suspect you've got governance going on, and you've got, and there may be milestones and good stuff like that. So let's adopt that. Let's look at the real situation that we're in, and embrace the complexity, embrace the situation. So if we're going to do Agile projects, well, let's do Agile projects. I don't think, that's not much to ask, right? So different teams and different situations will choose different life cycles. So one of the things I want to point out is that, if everybody could go on mute, that would be great. You can choose to observe this in your organization, that, yeah, Maria, if you could go on mute, thanks. So you could choose to observe this organization that different teams are working different ways. I'm sure you've got some Agile project teams, some Scrum-based Agile project teams. Great. I bet you, though, if you've been doing Agile for a while, you've also got some stable, dedicated teams that are doing, more of a DevOpsy continuous delivery form of Agile. Maybe those teams are releasing into production, at every Friday, for example. That's a fairly common thing now. Maybe you've got some lean Kanban-based teams. Maybe you've got some project teams. Maybe you've got some continuous delivery lean teams doing, once again, more of a DevOps type of thing, where those teams are releasing in production several times a day. Maybe you've got some teams doing exploratory lean startup, new product development, where you really want to take a hypothesis-driven approach and go into experiments and bring small MVPs into the marketplace to experiment and learn. Maybe you've got a team of teams, large programs. How the heck do you coordinate across a team of teams and help make that successful? And the sub teams could also be working in unique ways if you're sophisticated enough to manage that and to guide that. So the point is, different teams in different situations are going to adopt different life cycles, and rightfully so. I bet you've got, and some I'm not showing it here, but I bet you some teams are still doing a waterfall serial life cycle, and that's fine. That makes sense for them. So the point is, different teams in different situations will work in different ways. So we want to embrace that. That is a good thing. We want them to be successful. We want them to get better. We want them to work in a fit for purpose manner. So we need to do that. We also need to look beyond the team. One of the challenges that many organizations face when they adopt Agile, or when they start to adopt Agile, is they take a team-based approach, because that's what most of the Agile literature is all about. And it's one of the actually huge benefits of Agile was taking a team-based approach. But no teams are whole. Teams are semi-autonomous in most cases. And so the point is, so say I've started up an Agile team. So the fantasy in the Agile world is that we have these whole teams that have all the skills and all the people, all the resources, all the money, everything they need to get the job done. And that is certainly a wonderful situation to be in. And every so often you actually see that. But for the most part, that's not the case. The reality, the hardcore reality in most organizations are that my Agile team needs to work with the HR people, the people management folks, to staff the team up and to get us training and do other things. Sometimes we have to go hat in hand to the finance folks, or whoever it is that has money that funds projects and funds efforts, and ask for money to pay for the project. Wow, weird, huh? So not whole. Sometimes we got to work with the organization security people to make sure that what we're doing is a secure thing, and we're following guidelines and staying regulatory compliant. If we're in that sort of a situation, not whole. Smarter organizations have enterprise architecture efforts that are guiding and guiding these teams, helping them make better decisions. Sometimes we have data management efforts underway. So how do we get access to the right databases, the right data sources? How do we evolve them? Might not even have in some organizations, the development teams or the house building teams might not even have access to be allowed to update data sources, or let alone change their schema and things like that. And some organizations are a bit smarter than that. Sometimes we have vendor management. All right, so how do I go off and buy new things, or obtain working with the HR folks to hire contractors to be on our projects? Sometimes we have release management. So larger organizations realize they need to coordinate the efforts of all these teams to make sure that we're releasing in a coherent order and we're not stepping on each other's feet. And sometimes we have operations groups that are maintaining the operational infrastructure and good stuff like that. So even though we're doing DevOps and where we streamline development operations, we still might have an operations group that are doing common, providing common services and common infrastructure across all the teams. Fair enough, or maybe we don't, but that depends on your situation. But the point is that from the point of view of my team, so in this case, this is more of an Agile software development team. From the point of view of my team, I have to interact with all these other teams to get the job done. So we're really a semi-autonomous team. We should be self-organizing, of course. So we should still be in control of how we organize ourselves and how we organize our work and how we're going to work together. So we self-organize, but we're semi-autonomous at best. So we have to collaborate
Sí,
effectively
sí, ahora
with others.
sería yo le comunico a la pastora, como usted me dijo, y
If
ahí lo
everybody could go on
trabajamos.
mute, that would be great. This is the DAFLEX Lifecycle. So not only did we purchase my organization, Disciplined Agile, about a month and a half, 2 months later, we purchased the Net Objectives organization, and one of their assets, they had many assets. One of them was the Flex framework, which we've integrated into Disciplined Agile to form our value stream layer. So the idea with a value stream is that it begins and ends with our customers. And actually, it doesn't really end; it just keeps keeps iterating. But assuming you've got an effective value stream. But the idea here is it goes through various aspects of your process of your organization. This might be one large team, or it might be a team of teams, right? So we might have some people that are, the executives are responsible for strategy, portfolio management folks are responsible for portfolio management, and so on. And then we eventually build something, get that solution. That could be a product, it could be a service. We get it out into the marketplace, or in the case of a government agency, we get it out to the citizens. And then we get it into our business operations effort. We run this thing, or we sell this thing, or sell these services that we're selling to our customers, or giving to our customers in some case. And it's at that point that we realize value. We don't really earn value. We don't really realize value until it's in the hands of our customers and they're actually getting real measurable value from whatever services and offerings and products that we're providing them. So that's a slightly different mindset than what we see in many organizations. So we're full believers in benefits realization, if you want to put it into management speak, but it's really value realization. But that's okay, close enough. So and then the hexes in the middle of the diagram there are supporting functions that help make all this work. Each of these hexes are something we call a process blade, or a process area, depending on the terminology you prefer. We use the term process blade. It's one of the few new terms that we've introduced in DA. But anyways, so we've got these various process blades, and then behind all these process blades are choices. So there's different ways we can approach security. There's different ways that we can approach portfolio management. There's different ways we can approach enterprise architecture, and so on. So we give choices. We always give choices in DA, because different teams are in different situations, and they need to choose their own way of working. So, but having said all this, so value streams are absolutely critical to your success. But we need to look beyond value streams. We need to look at true organizational business agility. And that's what the full scope of the DA toolkit's all about. So we've organized it into 4 layers. The first layer is our foundational layer, where we've got mindset stuff and basic concepts and teaming structures and roles and how to choose your way of working, stuff I was showing you earlier. The next layer is disciplined DevOps. And this is basically table stakes now for organizations. It used to be, if you can get good at agile software development, yeah, you're doing okay. That's just part of the overall picture. If you're not doing DevOps, or at least be darn close to doing DevOps, you're probably in trouble. So I would highly suggest getting serious about that in order to be competitive. So that's really, and we take a look at it in DA from an enterprise class point of view. So, how do you, not only doing software development or solution delivery, we prefer to call it, but you got to be doing DevSecOps. How do you bring security issues into account? Database DevOps, biz DevOps, all that sort of stuff. And how do you do this at scale? So, if you've got hundreds or thousands of teams in flight, you darn well better believe you're going to be coordinating your support and your release management and your operations stuff. So it's not going to be every team does their own thing, at least, if you want to stay in business. And then of course, value streams sit on top of that. And then finally, we saw the Flex Lifecycle for value streams earlier. And then finally, the rest of the organization. So how do we do finance in an agile manner? And it's highly desirable. It's possible and highly desirable. And there's wonderful body of knowledge around this for decades now. How do you do vendor management in an agile manner? How do we do HR, people management in an agile manner, or lean, agile or lean manner? How do we get more effective at this? Because the challenge is that our organizations are complex adaptive systems. So if we want to get more effective, we need to enable our various teams at the various areas in the organization and allow them to improve. Well, first of all, motivate them to improve, and then allow them and enable them and support them in improving over time, because different teams will work at different, will improve at different speeds. And that's okay, but as long as they're improving and getting better, that's okay. So, because the last thing you want in your organization is, you're trying to be agile in your software teams or in some teams, but then you got these folks over here and they're special. And the governance folks must follow a traditional manner because, darn it, you're in a regulatory environment, or darn it, you've got to do annual budgeting because you're a publicly traded corporation. Therefore, we need to be really stupid about the way we do budgeting. And it's interesting, none of the regulations require that, by the way. So we can be smarter about these things if we know that it's possible and I hope desirable. So anyways, we can choose to get better at all these things. So because otherwise, if the vendor management folks decide to be working a very traditional, slow manner, they're going to be the anchor around everybody else's neck, and they're going to put you at risk. So we all need to improve. We all need to get better, and it's possible for all of this. So parting thoughts before we go to Q&A. So hopefully your people are putting questions. I can't see if you're putting questions in right now, so hopefully you are. If not, my feelings will be hurt and I'll cry myself.
We have a couple. No worries.
Okay, I always have a lot, so not worried about that at all. Okay, so anyway, so a couple ideas I want to leave you with. First of all, the frameworks are great. Please don't get me wrong about that, but they really are. It's the equivalent of giving you a fish, right? So they're going to feed you for a day. They're going to solve an immediate problem for you, and that's great. Yeah, it's good not to starve. But in DA, we're teaching you how to fish, and this is a little more sophisticated. It takes a little bit of skill to go fish. For those of the fishermen or fisher people among us, they can definitely verify it's a little bit harder to fish and a little more enjoyable than it is to go down to the local supermarket and buy a fish, or go down to the docks if you're living near the ocean. So a little more effort learning how to fish, but feeds you for life. And so that's really what we're trying to achieve in DA. I can't say it enough. Look what the apex predators are doing. If you're scared of another organization, emulate them. The other organizations that you're not really scared of, following in the footpath. I want to adopt I need to see 3 case studies of organizations just like us before I'm going to adopt this framework. You're a follower. You're not a leader. And these days you can't afford to do that anymore. You got to break out of the pack. You really do. And you've got to, because if all it takes is 1 or 2 of your competitors to do that, or one of the apex predators just show up on your doorstep one day and decide to get into your marketplace, and you've got a very serious problem. So I highly suggest becoming an apex predator and getting on this continuous improvement path, becoming a learning organization. Disciplined Agile definitely helps you do that. So start where you are. Whatever you're doing today, that's great. Good for you. So start where you are, do the best that you can, and always strive to get better. And Disciplined Agile, we help you. We give you the skills to fish. We give you the skills to get better. So thank you very much. So hopefully apparently there's a few questions there. Let's go to questions, and if somebody could choose some questions, that would be great.
Okay. Skip Fletcher asked, how is process goal selection tied to context attributes such as geography and time zone separation, domain complexity, etc.?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to go back about 50 slides. Sorry about this. Let me know. Yeah, it was about 50 slides. So let's go. Yeah, so it's not. So here we are at the point, and I'll answer 2 questions. I'm not totally sure what you're asking. In the effort of choosing the process goal to look at, that's a knowledge thing, right? So you've got to have a handle on, we got a problem with the way we're exploring scope, or we got a problem. This sounds like a quality issue, or sounds like an architecture issue. So there's a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of judgment there. But then when you're choosing these techniques, I assume you know the situation that you're in. I assume that oh yeah, we're in a life critical situation because we're doing heart monitors. We're a team that's spread across all of Texas. We are a team that is taking on high technical complexity because we're putting devices in people's chests and so on, right? So you got a reasonable handle on your situation. So and you also know who your people are, right? You've got a reasonable handle on what your skills are and your preferences and the level that you're at, whatever that happens to be. So then knowing the context that you're in, then you can make choices, right? So what happens, I'll just blast that out. So different techniques work in different, are appropriate for different situations. Now I went through more of a functional challenge. But if you had a situation, say, I'll go back a few slides. Say you're in a situation where, I don't know, there's a plague, and you realize, geez, everybody's working from home now, and we were used to, everybody's working in a single room with a bunch of whiteboards and all that good sort of stuff. What the heck do we do, right? How do we communicate with each other? How do we coordinate now? How do we do that? So that would actually be this is a slide I can't really show you, but that would be a situation where, oh yeah, wait a minute, now we've got an issue that our situation has changed. We have to change the way that we coordinate within the team and within other team with other teams, right? Because maybe we got to interact with somebody out in Canada. So that's the issue there. So what'll happen is then we would dive into coordinate activities and realize, oh yeah, there's different techniques that are, wow, look at that, geographic distribution. Geez, other people must have been doing remote work long before we got forced to do it. How about that? We can do a little bit of reading now and then play around with whatever techniques. Or look, we're in our team grew, and we used to be a single team. Now we grew and grew and grew, and now suddenly we're a bunch of teams trying to work together. So now we got to coordinate across our program. Oh, look, there's techniques to do that. So that's the thing. So yeah, so you've got to know a couple things. You've got to know what situation you're in, and I assume you do. And if you don't, you're in so much trouble, it doesn't really matter. But and you've got to have a little bit of training in order to navigate the toolkit. So that's why we have a two-day certification course in this. So you got to learn what what these various process goals are. If you remember the other slide, that was a build slide with all the hexes on it. You got to have a handle on what those other areas are, because in the case, so that was for teams. But the case of if I'm working with a marketing team, then I would want to blah blah blah. Then I would want to, oh look, there's something I could, if it was the online thing, oh look, I click on marketing, and oh, there's options. How about that? And then you go poking around for a marketing technique that solves whatever your marketing challenges are right now. That's basically the idea.
Another question is from Laura. How does DA address project capacity planning?
Oh, I gotta go back. Okay, so capacity planning. That sounds like a team thing, right? So how do we know how to build the team? How do we know how to what we can do? So there's two issues there. How do we build teams? And then how do we do HR level capacity planning or portfolio capacity planning as well, depending on what level you're at. So I'm not going to go back to the hex slide because we all seen how much of a hassle there is. But yeah, so some aspects of capacity planning are in people management if you're looking at organization wide. Some aspects of capacity planning are at the team level and are part of form team at the top left corner there.
Okay, another question is, I don't want to lose my spot here. One second, I'm sorry. How do you tie all the different ways of working together for executive status, reviews, et cetera? That's from Fernando Garcia. And he asks, can you walk through an example of a project using the DA tool?
Yeah, definitely. Excellent question. Everybody deals with that. We've been meaning to, we've actually got some articles online about this, and we've been meaning to write something in more detail. I suspect that'll be coming out later this year. But so first of all, that would be an aspect of governed team, the governed delivery team thing. We're just about to rename that to governed team. But anyways, so it's part of team governance, because at the team level, we're going to measure stuff, right? So different teams are in different situations. They work differently. They face different situations. They have different goals. They have different outcomes that they're trying to achieve. So you're going to adopt a measurement strategy. I hope you're going to adopt a measurement strategy that's contextual in nature. That you measure against the outcomes you're trying to achieve. You measure against, in the case of one of your outcomes is to, I hope, to improve the way you're working. You're going to measure some sort of effectiveness in some way that's appropriate for your team. If one of your outcomes you're trying to achieve is to improve quality, you're going to measure quality in some way. So here's an example for you. Let's say we have a data warehousing team, a web app development team, and a house building team. Okay, so we're working for a construction company. So we got different types of teams doing different things. And we have a corporate goal to improve quality by 20%. Okay, that's our annual goal for this year. One of our annual goals. You're gonna have more, right? But you've got this one, your quality goal, improve quality by 20%. Well, I can measure quality in data warehousing. I can measure quality in app development. I can measure quality in house development, right? All different. Measuring data quality is a different animal than measuring application quality, which is certainly different than measuring the quality of the houses that you're building. So the point is that I'm going to ask my teams, hey, I really want you to improve quality by at least 20%. You need to measure quality, and you need to roll it up into a score. So I'm going to ask you to say, in this case, we just want to see, quality going up. So you need to measure quality. You need to have a coherent way to doing that, and you need to be able to tell me the trends and roll up some sort of trend number. So then that way, when I'm the portfolio manager or I'm the executive overviewing all these projects, and I've got my little dashboard. Well, one of my controls for each of those teams will be some sort of indicator indicating quality. And if I see teams that aren't getting at least 20%, then maybe they're yellow or maybe they're red. So there'll be certain rules around, how me, the portfolio manager, is rolling up this data and what lights I'm going to toggle. But and then what I would want to do if the house building team is in trouble, I would click on that and I would drive down to their dashboard, which will be a completely different dashboard for them because that's a unique team. And they need to, that team self-organizes, that team needs to measure whatever it is that they're doing. They need to measure and improve upon their measurements. So I will go and look at their unique dashboard, and I got to be able to read that. So as a governance person, as a portfolio person, perhaps, I need to be sophisticated and skilled enough to know what I'm looking at, or more realistic to know that I don't know what I'm looking at, and to go and know enough to go talk to the team of, hey, what the heck is this? So that's the way you roll it up. So you don't roll up the exact measures. You roll up against categories, because you must recognize that if you can't inflict common measures across teams. Well, there's a few things you can, but for the most part, it generally doesn't work out well. But what you can do is you can ask teams to have, achieve certain outcomes, ask them to measure it appropriately for them. And here's a way that to convert it into a generic score that we can then roll up. So that's basically, there's a little more to it than that, but that's basically the strategy. But it requires sophistication on the part of the governance people, which is where it tends to fall apart. So,
Audrey has a question, and she thanks you for the great presentation, but she does have a question. Do you have any good recommendations for continuing education resources, like favorite books or things like that, for various project management types? And she says Agile, etc.
Yeah, so definitely. So PMI, we have multiple things that we can offer. Yeah, so we recently released a workshop called online self-directed workshop called Basics of DA. It's, I believe, $170 US right now for 10 PDUs, so it's not such a bad deal. Of course, you can pick up the Choose Your Wow. Oh, that doesn't work out well. Anyways, the Choose Your Wow book, you can order physical copies online right now from Amazon. We used to have it in the PMI bookstore, but we've had challenges with offering physical things right now with shipping. We have a shipping calculation challenge for some reason. But it's available online at Amazon. It's also available if you're a PMI member. You can log into PMI.org and go to the, do a search, go to the book page for Choose Your Wow, and get your own PDF. Just like many of the other publications from PMI, you can get your own personalized PDF of the book. It's about 400 printed pages, so it's a big PDF. But so there's a lot to it. So you can do that, and of course, there's also training. There's the certification around the Disciplined Agile Lean Scrum Master. That name may soon be changing, so keep your eye out for. I can't tell you when, but we're about to release a new certification strategy across PMI. So don't worry if you're an ACP or PMP in that. But anyways, it's mostly a DA thing. I don't guarantee it for sure, but the DLSM might change its name. Nothing else will change with that, I think. But so anyway, so there's great certification there.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much, Scott. I'm sorry to cut you short. I know somebody's question hasn't been answered, but I would like to move forward because we want to be mindful for your time, and maybe we will have you come to talk to us after we deliver our Disciplined Agile Lean Scrum Master class, the training. Yeah. Then people have more understanding. I as a CDA DCLSN, and I look at the DAF, and I understand what you are talking about, but I believe most of the chapter members who attend this section, they probably kind of like, okay, this is a lot of going on. This is a lot of information. So I would like to introduce our VP of Marketing. Our VP of Marketing, Laura. Laura actually is the main force with Pat and with our VP of Professional Development, Ariana Stone. They both are here. Laura actually is leading our Disciplined Agile Lean Scrum Master training with the top training provider for the chapter. Laura has been a wonderful volunteer and served as marketing team, and she's a marketing guru, marketing and branding coach, productivity junkie, and mommy and a cat lover. So Laura, please, I will let you do an announcement for our Disciplined Agile Lean Scrum Master training.
Okay, thank you, May. That was a nice introduction. So I wanted to let everyone know that we're having a training the end of August, 29th and 30th. It's a 2-day training by Josh, who's a great instructor. And it's pretty much affordable. And I'm trying to find my screen here to show it to you, but I am not sure I can do that. So I'll just talk it through. Little introduction about myself. I am a marketer and project manager. Oh, there we go. I don't know who's sharing that, but originally from Belize, and I'm really excited about the chapter because we have a lot going on and we're loyal and we're excited. I am one of the village, the PMI Dallas chapter, and with my experience in marketing and project management, I gotta tell you, the CDA program is something because I have used a hybrid life cycle for my marketing programs, and it works wonderfully. I've done that. I've done the program that was taught by Scott, and if you move over, this is actually the program. Josh will be doing this this class for us. It's a 2-day weekend, and it's a DALSAM certification course, which will actually give you 1 year benefits to all the DALSAM blogs and the work. It's an awesome. You have all the material that you need to take your organization to the next level. And I am not an IT PM. I'm a marketing PM. Easy to understand, easy to read. You pass the exam, and I'm telling you, it's like reading a novel. So I encourage everyone to go and get this 50% off the regular pricing. And it also includes the exam, and that gives you that CDA certification, plus the complimentary 1 year to the benefits. So members, guests, I hope you did enjoy this. It's just an intro, but there's so much more to learn. And I am not an IT PM. I'm a marketing PM. So if it worked for me, it will work for any and everybody. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. And I just want to let everybody know, if you as a regular person want to sign out this CDA or DALSN, it will range about $1,500 to $995 because we are the big chapter, and I have an honor to in the same class with Josh. So he's doing this for P&I Dollar chapter member only. So you have to be if you are not P&I Dollar chapter member and you are the leader from our chapter, please reach out to me and I will be more than happy to connect you with Josh. But you need to be a P&I Dollar chapter member, then you will only have the price of $595 before the July. So that is a good price. I think Scott can smile for that, right? That is a good price.
It's a good price, and Josh is a great instructor. I don't miss this opportunity, really don't.
Yeah, we basically robbed Josh. I think his wife almost called me, say, you take my husband's time for 2 days and for not making money. I basically begging Josh and we rob him.
That's mean.
So members, please consider sign up. It's in our agenda already. And thank you, Laura. Thank you, Pat. And thank you, Ariana, to work with Josh to make this possibility. And this price is only for 20 spots. So if we have more than 20 spots, we will definitely negotiate with Josh, help he extend the welcome with the same price. But we signed a deal and contract is limit spots because he needs to making sure he can taking care of everybody. So this won't be a big cost. Please sign up as early as you can. Then if we have people on the waiting list, I will work with Laura and Pat to see how can we make more class possibility for everybody. If you have any question about the stack, I already put Pat's email there. I believe Pat's going to receive the PDF file from Scott. If Scott didn't forget, and I'm 100% sure Pat will send it to you.
Definitely.
Yes, and based on the smile from Scott, he really enjoyed the class. So after Josh delivered DALSN class with us, I will definitely reach out to Scott again and invite him. Maybe he will bring Olivia here to just say hi to us.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, feedback, suggestions, feel free to reach out to each VP or send me email or LinkedIn to me. We are here to serve you. Thank you so much, our member, and thank you, Scott. You're being amazing.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you. Have a great day. Oh, my son just come back.
There we go. Hey.
Hi, baby. Say hi.
Hi.
Yeah, let's see you guys. Okay. Thank you. Have a great night. And please sign up for the class. You guys won't regret. And you will never get the better price there.
Yeah.
Bye, baby.
Bye. Thank you.
Have a great night.
You too. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye. I will log out after the last person log off. Bye.
Thanks.
Laura, you did great. Bye, Maria. Bye, Daniel.
Bye-bye.
Where's my son, baby? Oh. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Scott.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, May. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Laura,
you.
I think you did a really good job.
Oh, thank you. You
You never
do.
know. We may need a second class. And I talked to Josh. He said if we have more students, he will consider extend the term.
Yeah, I think we're filling up fast. So I hope everyone can take advantage of that early bird
Yeah.
because you save some money there.
Yeah, I think you did great. Sorry I cut you short because we kind of take additional 11 minutes from Scott, and I want to making sure we can continue to invite him back.
No, I believe I got the message over, and
Yeah.
a PDU code. Oh, someone is asking about a PDU code for this class. I don't know.
1
I don't
hour
think-
technical. If they need, they can do 1 hour technical.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
I'll just put that here and now.
Because those are delivered by Scott Ambler. I don't think PNI will have issue as long as we have that ready.
Yeah. All
Yes,
right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye. Anybody else still here?
Oh, I think we still have quite a few people here, huh?
Oh, maybe they just maybe they
Wow. Maybe this is where the happy hour starts, huh?
Yeah, maybe
Chanel?
next time. Baby need to go to sleep. Mwah, mwah. You look good. Yeah, I start record. Oh, you need to cut this off, okay? Okay. Bye. Hold on. I don't know how to start recording. Okay. Bye, Laura.
Bye-bye.
I will let you do. I have a short, baby. I don't want to record. Julio can. Yeah. Buddy.